So what do we do? Is it possible, third question, for us to start remigration? My answer to that is very simple. Yes. Where there is a will, there is a way.
This is Eva Vlaardingerbroek, your normal right-wing populist on Twitter from the Netherlands, who's loved by Elon Musk. Her political worldview consists of three main pillars. Pillar 1 is remigration, which entails not only the complete halting of any new immigration to white European nations from non-white countries, but it also means the mass deportation or removal by any means possible of the citizens of said European nations who are non-white or have a migrant background that is deemed unfavorable by people like Eva. This is to prevent the Great Replacement, which is the apparent extinction, murder, and rape of Europeans at the hands of foreign invaders led in by the quote-unquote globalists. Pillar number 2 is being mad about this thing called democracy getting in the way, or in other words, being angry that the parties that Eva supports have never won an outright majority in Western Europe and therefore can't control everything. See, recently populist right-wing parties such as the PVV and Eva's homeland under Geert Wilders won almost 24% of the vote, making them the largest political party in the Netherlands. This meant, however, that if they were to lead a government, they would have to enter into a coalition with other parties. And unfortunately for them, these parties don't really support the idea of removing all the non-white people, including citizens, from the Netherlands. Pillar number 3 is the support of Christian authoritarians like Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin, and wanting this really for all of Europe. This ties in perfectly into pillar number 2. For Eva, Hungary is the only real European country left, and Orban has really made it an amazing place to live. I mean, look at all these amazing statistics. It really shows that if you don't have any non-white immigration, your country will truly be an amazing place.
Do you think it's possible for other nations who are indeed in this position, if we're talking about, for example, Germany and Sweden, before the next half of the century, they will have a minority of the European population? Do you think it's possible to really put a halt to mass migration and even start maybe remigration within the framework of the European Union? Do you think that reforming the European Union is possible, or do you think that the construct, which obviously very much did away with Christian values, is even possible to reform?
What's up, guys? It's your boy Marcus here, back at it again with another video. And in today's episode of the Weirdos of Elon Musk's Twitter, we're going to be talking about Eva Vlaardingerbroek. For Eva, the future is very clear. European countries such as Germany, France, or the UK will see the ethnic Germans, French, and British become minorities within their own countries, while ethnic peoples from the Middle East, Northern and Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southern Asia, mainly India and Pakistan, will constitute a majority. These groups, according to Eva, who are majority Muslim, are attempting to destroy the Christian values and fundamentals of Western Europe.
Of course, you're going to be attacked if you say, hey, this continent, Europe, has been predominantly white for, the entirety of its history. And now suddenly within one generation, a few bureaucrats have decided against the will of the people that we should suddenly be a minority. Why do we agree with that? Or why do we allow that to happen? If you say that, you are going to be attacked. But the only other option then you have is say nothing and have it happen. So the choice is yours, and I've made my choice.
According to Eva, immigrants from these areas are more violent than the native white European population and are making Europe a dangerous place for white people. And if they are then in the majority, a genocide of native Europeans will occur, making the Great Replacement a reality.
When another white boy or white girl dies at the hand of an immigrant, we might shake our head, we might let out a sigh, we might even get angry for a minute or two, and then we go on with our lives. I know one thing for sure, and that is that if nothing changes, if we don't start to seriously fight for our continent, for our religion, for our people, our countries, then this time that we live in will go down in history as the time in which Western nations no longer had to get invaded by hostile armies in order to be conquered. This time will then go down in history as the period in which the invader was actively invited in by a corrupt elite.
The globalists who are instituting this plan, the small cabal of people, hint hint, that control the Western governments, the media, and culture, hint hint, they're also teaching you to hate white people. This secret cabal are seeking to ruin our civilization and are teaching you, according to Eva, to hate blonde-haired, blue-eyed Europeans. And although Eva has made it clear that she doesn't believe that white people are superior to any race.
So I'm sure that they're going to say about me that I'm a terrible racist again. No, that's not true. I don't think that any race is superior to another. I just think that mine is also not inferior to that of others.
She is interestingly obsessed with her own blonde hair and blue eyes, so much so that some of her best friends on Twitter, such as Naomi Siebt, tweet out things like this, and the top comments on a lot of her tweets look like this. She and her friends also at times imply that the level of melanin in your skin and that individuals' intelligence are somehow linked. Some people might describe these posts as a dog whistle. Now, how is this trend of destruction and extinction going to be reversed? Through two ways. First, all immigration must be stopped. Even though Eva doesn't seem to understand that the European economy relies on immigrants to do the jobs that people like Eva, who give speeches and tweet for a living, don't want to do. The slaughterhouses, farms, and construction sites need their workers, and although the economy relies on such immigrants, Eva seems to think that Hans and Helga are paying for Mohammed and Fatima, when in reality, a lot of the jobs that immigrants hold are paying into the very systems that are funding the retirements of Hans and Helga, who decided not to have any children. And the collapsing pension systems could easily be fixed by raising the contributions of the wealthiest Europeans. But no, Eva believes that Mohammed, who works the graveyard shift at an Aldi for minimum wage, is really the one to blame.
The costs of immigration are, as in every Northwestern European country, astronomical. The immigrants that come to our country are oftentimes economic immigrants. They're not actual refugees who come, as Gerald said, to live a better life at our expense. So the Dutch tax-paying population is paying for them, paying for their houses, paying for their education, paying for their healthcare, which puts pressure on the welfare state that then in turn is no longer available for the native Dutch population.
Her plan to stop all immigration would be to detain everyone that claims asylum indefinitely, and they couldn't roam free or receive free healthcare. Even though, interestingly, how can you work to pay for said healthcare if you are detained? Oh, I see. And while her buddy responds that we should be sinking all the boats in the Mediterranean, Eva replies vaguely that remigration, LOL, is the real answer. The reasons for that will become clear, particularly due to one of her closest political allies, the Austrian political activist Martin Sellner. So what is remigration? Well, as Eva so bravely asked Mr. Orban earlier, even if we completely close the border now, what are we gonna do with the 20 to 25% of people living in Germany, Sweden, or the Netherlands, for example, who are of non-white, non-European descent? Well, the answer is clear, dummy. Remigration. And to give you an idea of what remigration is, here is a song that Martin Sellner, one of remigration's biggest pushers, and his friends were singing in a nightclub. Now, Eva won't say this, but her dream, and the dream of her allies, is to remove all non-white individuals from Europe, even those with citizenship. Very few of them will really say this, but Eva makes it clear that civic nationalism, you know, the idea that the nation is not based on blood and genetics and anyone who is a patriot or a nationalist can get involved, well, she no longer views this as an option. And she doesn't say what the other option is, but there's really only one other type of nationalism out there, and that's ethno-nationalism, where the nation is based on blood and soil and genetics.
We have to be realistic. Civic nationalism doesn't work, not at this rate of immigration. So having discussions, that focus solely on the concept of integration really bothers me at this point. We could have had those discussions before we decided, or let's say someone decided for us, to open the borders and let in millions of people. So what do we do? Is it possible, third question, for us to start remigration? My answer to that is very simple. Yes. Where there is a will, there is a way. Don't be fooled. Our politicians are absolutely able to carry this out. They're simply unwilling right now. And so, to hide their unwillingness, they hide behind international treaties. They hide behind human rights.
And to achieve that goal, the Netherlands, for example, would have to remigrate the 25% of its citizens with a migrant background. And what about those that are non-deportable, those that only have the Dutch passport? Well, Eva already said, where there is a will, there is a way. So maybe a certain method used by Germany would be the next step. What other way to achieve this goal if no other country is willing to take these people? It's clear why Eva is so vague when it comes to discussing how to actually carry out the remigration plan. Now that you know what remigration actually entails, it's important to realize how unpopular this would actually be. And Eva knows that. The majority of society agrees with her. If she said, for example, that Europe should figure out how to protect its outside border and prevent boats, for example, from being able to illegally bring people from Northern Africa into the EU. Someone like me, for example, would even agree that we cannot let in, 1 million people every single year, and that if an immigrant commits a crime, well, they should then go to prison and and then be deported. This is all fine, and the majority of people would agree with Eva on this. Now, where they won't agree is the mass deportation and potential imprisonment of law-abiding non-citizen immigrants who contribute greatly to the European system, and most people, of course, are opposed to the forced deportation and possible imprisonment of citizens with a migrant background. Eva knows this, and it seems to really bother her. Interesting.
Europe is heading for total and utter destruction. Many experts have been warning for years now that a civil war is impending. But I believe that our reality is actually worse than that. In a civil war, there are two sides fighting. Here in Europe, only one side is. And I can tell you that it's not us. It's not the white native population of Europe. That doesn't mean, though, that the average European is okay with all of this. We are trying to constitute change through the official channels, but so far, with no luck. And this is a pattern we see everywhere in Europe. Right-wing parties win the elections. In some countries, they even win with 30% of the votes. But since they never gain an absolute majority, coalitions have to be formed. And what always ends up happening is either one of the three following options. Option A, despite the right wing winning, the centrist parties then say, oh no, but that party is too extreme for us and we don't want to form a coalition with them. Or option B, even if a coalition does get formed, the policies get watered down so much so that nobody gets what they voted for. Or C, and this is something that we see increasingly often in Europe, the legal system steps in and thwarts all true right-wing efforts by deeming the policies to be in violation of European law and human rights.
So Eva is in a clever way saying that a civil war, LOL, is imminent because the parties that won the election with 30% don't get to control everything and the 70% of people that didn't vote for them. She remains vague about who would start the civil war and what its end goal would be. Now, as stated in the intro, she was angry at the Dutch PPV, and recently she has also been angry that Germany's AfD, who came in second place in the February German election, didn't get to join the government with the CDU. And at the end of the day, Eva knows that the chances that the AfD win an absolute majority in Germany are extremely slim. A certain German Workers' Party also never won an outright majority, achieving their best result in March 1933, where they obtained 44% of the vote, in a vote where their warriors and defenders of Europe were already making it anything but a fair and free election. But I bring up this Workers' Party to remind you of what Eva said, where she explained that we're trying to constitute change through the official channels, but so far with no luck. This German party also eventually gave up on the official channels and took control by force. Eva never says that this is what she wants to do, but by saying there might be a little civil war, tweeting out things like this, and having Elon Musk constantly stating that a civil war is coming, you might start to think that democracy isn't something she's really fond of. She never discusses who will start the civil war and what its end goal will be.
But you have an absolute majority, and I wonder what your opinion is on other European countries, most European countries in fact, where the right wing is not able to get an absolute majority. Would you recommend to the leaders of those parties to form coalitions anyway and to have watered down policies, or to say, no, we're going to stay in the opposition?
To be able to deport, or let's say disappear, 25% of your citizenship, you should follow the lead of some past leaders, but importantly, some present leaders as well. Eva loves Viktor Orban. Now why is that? Because she wants the rest of Europe to resemble Hungary. His immigration policies are so perfect that Hungary is the only true European country left, according to Eva.
Because Hungary is, to me, technically the only country left in Europe that represents what Europe truly is about. So, strangely enough, I feel more at home here now than I do in my own home country.
You might ask yourself, is having a dictator a good thing? Well, Eva asks herself, is having one non-white person living in Europe a good thing? And all you have to do is look at these statistics showing just how amazing Hungary is. Just look where it ranks in the EU in corruption, poverty, and healthcare. But these are just mere statistics created by the secret cabal of globalists. And while Eva openly supports Orban, she supports Vladimir Putin as well. But she's too smart to say that outright, so she tweets things like this. So she genuinely believes that Russia has a higher standard of living and is a low-cost society, because Tucker Carlson, with his millions of dollars and someone who's used to New York grocery store prices, went to a grocery store in Moscow. Eva might be forgetting that although the prices might be cheap for Tucker, they are, in fact, not cheap for Russians. But more importantly, she says that the only reason it's not like that in the West anymore is because of conscious choices made by people who hate us. And this can be translated to, the West has immigrants, gay people, and is diverse, while Russia is pure Russian and Christian, like Hungary. Eva seems to forget, in fact, that Russia is in many ways more diverse than Europe, with millions of Muslims and hundreds of other ethnic groups. At the same time, while she doesn't say she supports Putin, she has never had a good word to say about Ukraine. NATO is also the enemy, as it wants to send you as cannon fodder to fight the war of the globalists. But interestingly, Russia or Putin never received this type of cannon fodder remark, when that is in fact exactly what Russia is doing. Eva also never says that Zelensky is in it for his own people. Now, why would she do that? And interestingly, she also wants the EU to collapse and become an American vassal state under another strongman that she likes, Donald Trump.
So President Donald Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on goods coming from the EU, just like he's done with Canada, Mexico, and China. And this might surprise you, but as a European woman, I'm actually not upset about the idea. And the reason for that being is that I truly think that this could mean the beginning of the end of the European Union. So I truly believe that this could start to really shake the foundation of the EU and will show countries, respective countries and their populations in Europe, that first of all, it's not automatic that it's a financial and economic benefit to be part of the EU. I think there are plenty of arguments that show that, but this one could make it really, really clear to people. And that, in fact, there is something like just trading between countries and making deals. And that doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard, that is, if you maybe treat the President of the United States with some respect.
She also wants NATO to collapse. Some people might assume that Eva is working to further Russian interests in Europe, just as Orban is. And some people might go as far to say that Russia is even paying her to do this. But that's just a theory. In conclusion, Eva is just as radical as any of the other open ethno-nationalists on Twitter who are supported by Elon Musk and who want to turn the Netherlands and the rest of Europe into a Russian-style, Putin-style dictatorship, where the church is at the center of the government and individual rights to, for example, do things like protest or be gay are banned. What makes her dangerous is that she hides behind vague definitions of words like remigration, attempting to pull in less radical individuals into her radical worldview that is so unpopular it could only be achieved by dismantling democracy, banning protests, banning the free press, and installing an authoritarian leader like the ones she so admires. Eva is, amongst others, being pushed by Elon Musk and has over 1 million followers. Her tweets get millions of views, and that's why I'll be continuing this series, The Weirdos of Elon Musk's Twitter. Stay tuned for the next episode. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode and subscribe to never miss another video. I'll see you guys in the next one.